What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Open Door Creative. Today we're here with one of the newest members of our team who is a ballin' creative director, Mack McCullough.
Hello!
What this channel is about is helping people get into the industry. As we all know, it's a pretty competitive place. We're gonna kind of flip the script. Usually I start a little bit about you and how you got in.
Sure.
I think we're gonna talk about that second. I
Okay.
think we're gonna start right off the bat with what advice would you give people that are trying to get into the game?
Best advice I would give you is be at least a dual threat.
Okay.
So if you want to be a copywriter, don't just be a copywriter. If you want to be an art director, don't just be an art director. Be an art director that does motion graphics. Be a copywriter that's super into strategy, because it's getting so diverse now.
Sure.
Specializing in one thing is table stakes. So if you got something else that you bring to the table, it's just more value. And it can be anything. You know, a creative that's, understands media and media placement and media strategy. Knowing where your message is going to be and where it's going to live can help lead to better creative.
And how can someone find that extra point? So if someone wants to be an art director, but they're like, oh, I need to find that other thing to be good at, should they just follow passion points? Like, should they look at industry trends? Like, where do you...
Yeah, I think you look at industry trends, you look beyond just sort of what, always be learning, but, find, award shows and award show stuff is like a great place to start. So obviously start find media awards and be like, okay, well, what's the best media plan out there?
Sure.
What does that tell me? What can I do with something like that?
Yep.
Look at obviously everyone should have at least a passing understanding of strategy, because beautiful creative and funny copy is great, but if it doesn't sell a product, it's not good.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main thing, is that, sort of know what else is going out there besides just a creative, and that's going to make you a much more dangerous weapon and a much more valuable asset to whatever team.
Were you a dual threat when you started, or did you have to kind of find your way and figure that part out?
Yeah, I think that I obviously base a lot of my stuff in strategy. I get deep into strategy. I work closely with strategists and give them a hard time. I know enough to be dangerous and to be a pain in the ass to them.
Yeah.
Also, I do. I have long been a fan of learning about other things. I think there's a huge opportunity for media and creative to work more seamlessly together. And that's something that I've always pushed for. Yeah, so I think that's one thing that I kind of came up doing. I didn't start on the creative side, so I was forced to kind of be a dual threat.
Not yet. So tell me that part. All right.
Okay.
So you kind of gave a hint there. So,
yes.
All right. So how did you get into this business? How did advertising, intrigue you, and how did you start?
So I kind of came into advertising by accident.
Okay.
I went to college. I was going to be a lawyer.
Oh God, Mac.
I know.
You were the opposite of a lawyer.
I would have been a horrible lawyer. I went to college I was a political science major. I was a history minor. I was law school.
Oh my God.
Just that was my path, and that's the way I was going to go. I worked at law firms all through college, and then realized I'd never met a happy lawyer. And so my senior year of college, I was like, man, I really don't want to do this. A little late in the game to make that discovery, but better late than never. And so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And my older sister, was a sales rep for a paper company. Not like Dunder Mifflin paper, but
damn it, I was hoping that was it.
No, but it's more like one of those, she lived in Nashville at the time, and so she worked with a lot of graphic design shops that would do the designs for album covers and stuff like that, and also worked with a lot of ad agencies and things like that who were doing a lot of collateral printed pieces. So she was that high-end designer paper. She was like, man, I keep going to these ad agencies and I'm meeting with these creatives, and it's just that's you. That's kind of they remind me of you. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. So I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, well, it's creative. I liked being creative. I liked writing. I liked kind of telling stories. Yeah, but it's a steady paycheck, and it's an office job, and I like the sort of the stability of it. So
I think that's the coolest realization too, right? Is that when you realize you can get paid to be creative for a living,
right?
It opens so many more doors.
For sure. And it's, it wasn't going into a filmmaking or, where it's really feast or famine. This was a good steady way, which I liked. So I graduated college, moved down to Austin, and lucked into a job at the big agency in Austin, which is GSD&M.
Oh, gotcha. I didn't know you went there. That's
Yeah, and so I met a guy who was their head of new business at GSD&M. I just kind of met with him. I was like, hey, like, can I just come pick your brain? And so I did that, and I would just kind of keep an eye out for whatever job openings came out. And it was called a traffic manager at the time. Later changed to creative project manager. A job came up. And I was like, hey, would this be a good like entry-level job? And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. Like you'll get to sort of learn about all the different departments, and like you're sort of the hub between everything.
Yeah, so you learn the big picture of the agency.
So I learned, sort of like the process of the agency and what everybody did. I was terrible at it because you had to be like super organized and super like type A Excel spreadsheets were life type of thing, and that was just not me. But I got to get in and got to meet people and just sort of learn about. So again, like I never took an advertising class. I mean, like I was coming in just sort of
fresh start.
But it was great. So I did that, and then I kind of met with some creative directors. I was like, man, I really kind of want to write. Like I'd like to try that out. They're like, yeah, all right. So they'd get some projects in that they didn't want to work on, or So my first sort of assignment was an outdoor campaign for Southwest Airlines. So tried that out. It was good. It turned out I was like, oh, I can do this. Like I got this. So I ended up moving back up to Dallas, and still not getting a job as a creative. I got on with another agency here on the account side as an account coordinator. Which was very similar to what the traffic manager was doing. You're really just sort of like making sure projects get from point A to point B to point C. But in my interview there, I was like, this is great. I really want to be a creative.
Gotcha. That's what I was going to ask, because going to another place, you had decided at that point you wanted to be a creative, but you were hitting all these other jobs before you hit that spot.
So I knew I wanted to be a creative, but I mean, I had no creative experience. I had a really terrible portfolio. I'm a writer. I didn't know any art directors at the time. So I interviewed at this place, at this agency here in Dallas, and I said, I really want to be a creative. And the HR person there, God bless her, was like, fantastic. She goes, well, take this job. You'll learn our agency and how we do things. We'll keep an eye out for a copywriter position that opens up, and you'll have a chance to sort of help out and do some writing. And so I did, and sure enough, like 8-9 months later, a copywriter position opened up, and I kind of raised my hand and said, I'd like to do that. And they looked at my terrible portfolio and saw enough in there to be like, yeah, all right. And so that's how I moved over to creative. And
that's awesome. So you got a foot in the door. And then just like let things happen how they were supposed to happen.
I think it's a lot easier for a copywriter, just because like you can get your foot in the door and just find a creative director that's cool and is willing to take a chance on you and say, like, if you're a young copywriter, hey, I'm an account person, I'm a project manager, I'm the receptionist at the front desk. But I want to try this out. And then, what they did with me a lot of times is they'd give me an assignment that they'd also give somebody else. So I always had sort of like a safety net. But you just work hard on it, you do a good job, and eventually they're like, you know what, this kid can do it, so let's let him do it full time.
That's cool. That's grind. So now you're a creative director, which is a very coveted position. It's basically at the top. So what do you think the role of a creative director is?
Creative director, to me, is a coach. It's to get the best out of my creative team. And to find out who's good at what. It's to get the best work that we can, and it's to put my team in position to do their best work. So, it's really sort of set the expectation, get out of the way, and give them the tools that they need to do their best work.
You had this really good quote of like, my job is not to completely do the creative, mine is to elevate it that extra 10 or 15%. And I think that's a cool way to look at it, because there's still this ownership being given, but you're like, I'm going to help you get it to where it needs to be. Kind of thing.
Like I want everybody to sort of keep pushing themselves. And as a creative director from a copy background, like I have my own limitations when it comes to evaluating design. I can't start with a blank sheet of paper and or a blank screen and develop a beautiful, award-worthy campaign from a visual standpoint. But I can take a look at something and I can get it that next level. I can say like, here's where my struggle is with it, or here's where it's off strategy, or here's where it's not selling me something. And I think that as a creative director is a kind of fun place for me to be, because it helps kind of play to my strengths, but help elevate people who have a different sort of discipline and a different skill set than I have.
Cool. The last kind of question I have is, obviously you've been in the industry a while now. What has been the most fun brand to work on?
Oh, the brands that have the most trust in us are usually the most fun. Like I worked on Top Golf for a while, and we were kind of doing their organic social.
Yeah.
And they had total trust in us, and like we would come up with just weird stuff. Like that was sort of what we sold them on.
Yeah.
Because when you do like an organic social, you have to provide some kind of value.
Yep.
It's not like people have to seek you out, so you have to give them a reason to seek you out. Like, what am I giving you to seek me out?
Yep.
And so our thing was like, well, let's just give them like fun content that they can interact with. And that, it'll just be a fun sort of time waste. And like, how can we bring that sort of the sense of fun of going to a Top Golf location to the online space?
Cool.
And so we just got super weird with it. And everything we proposed, like our clients were just like super trusting and just sort of like, all right, that's weird, y'all go with it. And it was so much fun to get to do that, and then also sort of see the reaction of the audience, because that's the great thing about social is that like it's immediate sort of gratification.
Yep.
You get to measure immediately, how people are reacting to it. You read the comments and like, oh, this is so great, like, so and so, this reminds me of you, blah 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 blah, and like that's really fun and rewarding.
Yep. And for little cost too. That's
for little
great,
cost,
you can pull a post and put a new one up relatively quickly to where like you can really gauge your audience and who's consuming that content.
Yeah, and I think if you try to do something original on social, like that, it's such a breeding ground for creative expression.
Yeah.
Because you've got to stand out. The problem with a lot of social right now, and that's true across most mediums, is like there's just a lot of sameness. Everybody wants to play it safe. This client was great about letting us take chances and try stuff out.
Cool. All right, so do you have any last thoughts? Anything that you want to kind of leave the audience?
Well, I would say like, if you're putting a portfolio together, especially starting out, challenge yourself. Find a brand, find a medium that seems like it would be boring. Anybody can make a fun campaign out of, beer, condoms, bars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you see a lot of that stuff and it's like, all right, well that's playing the game on easy level. And the odds are of you working on that type of account are pretty slim. So, give me something about, nasal spray.
Yeah.
Make a carpet cleaning service seem interesting and like something I want to interact with. And it doesn't have to be a big TV campaign. Give me a digital banner ad.
Yeah.
Make that seem like if you can do that, if you can add a degree of difficulty to it and make it seem smart, and then also make sure it's selling me something.
Yeah.
That's what's going to stand out to me. So like when I'm looking at portfolios, that's what I look for, that sort of like degree of difficulty. I look for that like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. I see what you did there.
Yep.
And when it's, a funny line about, a tequila brand, it's like, yeah, all right, I get it. Show me that, you can take that mundane stuff and elevate that. And that's what, that's going to be more useful to me than just the cleverest headline or the prettiest ad.
For sure. Awesome advice, man.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on the show, and we'll catch you next time.